Gotta do the dongle ring back, man. It's TSM, one sip at a time, breaking the chains that held me blind. I'm learning to live, finding my way, step by step. I'm breaking away with every pour. I'm claiming my life. It's TSM, I'm ready to thrive. Yeah, it's TSM.
Here we are. You heard it out, you're like, yeah.
I'm playing my drums to the music. That's a good song.
Yeah, it is a good song. Kudos to Sam who wrote that. When I first listened to it, I was like crying because the lyrics are really nice. You can find it on YouTube actually. If anyone wants to know, I can send you the full song because that's just a snippet of it. All right. Well, here we are. Welcome everybody to the Sinclair Method Q&A with me, Katie, and Bruce. Bruce out of Scotland. How are you today, Bruce?
I'm very good. I don't know if I'm having a late midlife crisis or an early late life crisis. We were just
Guys,
discussing.
Bruce is in a crisis today. That's what we discovered before we hit record. So be easy on him.
So I'm going to stick to a late midlife crisis. That's what I'll do. I'll stick to that one.
Okay. Okay.
So get myself a motorbike and ride off into California sunset or something. That's what I'll do.
Yeah. Get a Corvette or something, right?
Corvette and a motorbike, and I was going to say a nice hair, but that's not going to happen either. So
yeah. Oh, that's funny. Well, we love you, Bruce. You'll be all right. With age comes wisdom, so that's okay, right?
hopefully, yeah. I don't have the wisdom.
Yeah.
About that
it's supposed to, but you should go see a doctor. Well, welcome everybody who's joining. We're streaming on several different platforms today. We're going on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and a few others. So welcome wherever you're joining us from. This is really a time where you guys can come and ask your questions about the Sinclair method, and we would love to help you as much as we can. Sometimes it's limited with, how much we can share, because if we don't know your personal story and have a chance to talk to you one-on-one, we can't give you, the perfect answer, but we will do our best. So welcome everybody. It's interesting. I see you're here, Keith, and you asked this question, which is something I wanted to ask Bruce about. So Keith, we're going to kick things off with your question of what is the longest time you've seen someone to reach extinction? And I'm asking Bruce this or what I wanted to ask Bruce, because I know in your program, you don't necessarily use the terminology extinction from what I understand. And for those of you who might not know what extinction is, I just want to define it for those of us in the TSM world, how we define the experience of extinction. And you can read about it also in the book, The Cure for Alcoholism. But we define it as essentially this place of no more compulsion or craving to drink, and regained control over alcohol, where it feels effortless or almost effortless to control your drinking. You may still be drinking in moderation, or you may be alcohol free. So extinction does not necessarily mean abstinence. It's this place of just feeling like you're back in control of your drinking again, and you don't have those compulsive cravings. So, Bruce, I wondered what you want to say to this based on how you guys view and define extinction and the people you work with, and how long the longest you've seen someone get to that place.
Yeah, it's not that I know exactly what you mean by extinction. It's just that when I've learned that when I'm working with clients, I'm trying not to create an end goal. That doesn't explain it properly. I'm trying not to get a client into the mindset that there's a destination.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't want someone getting to the destination and then saying I've arrived and then whatever. But there is also good credit and good reward and good for self-esteem and confidence to know that someone has reached it. But I would agree exactly with what you say. Yeah. It's not that we don't use it. It's just that I don't tend to talk about it often, because I look at it as 3 stages. So you get an initial drop, you get stage 2, which is all habitual change. And then stage 3, I suppose, is extinction, but it's what we would call the rest of your life dealing with the process. So how long has it taken? The only one that really comes to mind is a guy that I used to work with. It was about 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
which was the maximum. But what I've found is, and there's not many at that stage, but what I do find with people who take a long time to get to that stage is it's nothing to do with them. It's nothing to do with the medication. It's nothing to do with the process, except to say that in most cases it's because of two reasons. One, that an individual is not engaged in a support program.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's really, really important. We see a lot of people running over 6, 9, 12-month period who are simply just taking the medication and expecting the pill to do everything. So that's why I think the support program is vital. When you've got someone to talk you through the process, it can shortcut the whole thing by quite a time. The other thing that can cause a long-term process, which it was with the person that I'm thinking about, is underlying emotional issues, quite serious trauma issues or things going on behind the scenes. The hardest part of the Sinclair method is not the addiction to the endorphin, but it's when you are reducing alcohol, it's learning to adjust to life again without the alcohol. Now, if someone's in the middle of going through a divorce or they're going through, for example, let's take someone who's ex-military or ex-forces, we'd call it in this country. They've been to war, they've had PTSD, they've seen some stuff that it's just no one really wants to see in life. So as they're coming down off the alcohol, there's that whole area of life to deal with. And that's where it then needs professional therapy, professional support. And that can extend the period of time. But really, the only final thing I would say is please, please, please don't measure it. It's nothing to do with how long it takes. It takes as long as it takes.
Yeah.
And every single person is completely different. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate you speaking to that because something I'm observing more with our program members, this is, starting Thrive the last 4 years or so and really being with people from day one until the end. That's my first experience doing that because when I was coaching people, I might check in with them a few times, but not track them all the way through their treatment journey. And something I'm finding, like, kind of to your point, I understand what you're saying about it not being this like, okay, I've got to reach this destination. And unless I've reached it, like I'm failing and what's wrong with me, essentially. Because some people they've been in our program, they've been on the method for a couple of years, they've reduced their drinking by like 80%, but they feel frustrated with themselves because they haven't claimed this extinction point yet. And I don't want it to ever be this thing that makes them feel discouraged and forget about the fact that they've reduced their drinking by 80%. And maybe they still overdrink occasionally or feel like they don't have that total control yet. But I think that's an important conversation to have in the TSM world because it is, in my experience, extinction is this process of realization that you have this control again over alcohol. It's not a one-time event necessarily. It's more a series of you being exposed to different triggers and emotions and situations and settings and genuinely testing the waters. Like, do I have control? Am I drinking out of control? Kind of back to your original question, Keith, of how long it takes. Bruce mentioned 2 years. I think I have at least one. I think at least a couple interviews of people who took 3 years. One lady, I can't recall. I recently posted her interview. She's now over 4 years on the method. I can't recall if she said she feels like she's just now reaching extinction or she's getting to this point where she just feels like she doesn't care about alcohol anymore. But that's another experience. So, yeah, I've seen it take multiple years. And if you're the Keith I'm thinking of, with your situation and with anybody who's not following the protocol correctly, they don't have the right dose of the medicine or they're not taking it following TSM correctly. I like to have them have their TSM start date from the date where they start doing the protocol correctly. Because if you've been taking naltrexone incorrectly for 6 months or a year or more, that doesn't really, it's hard to put that in with like your TSM timeline, because you really need to follow the protocol, the golden rule to a T. Like Bruce says, never, ever, ever drink without naltrexone, you know, and there's other things that go along with that. But if you're not following it to a T, it might be better to be like, okay, my new start date is the date where I was following it correctly and taking the medication, you know, following TSM. So it can take time. And I think a challenge too, I don't know what you think about this, Bruce, but it's such a subjective experience. It's not like a doctor's telling you, okay, this marker's there, this marker's there. Yep, you've reached it, you know, because I've known people who felt like they were at extinction and then they overdrank one night because they were out socializing and kind of lost track or whatever. Like, but then they're right back, you know, where they were before that. They're still, you know, having a lot of alcohol-free days, having control most of the time. So it's not like we're demanding perfection when you reach extinction, just like someone might have control with their sugar intake. And most of the time they don't overindulge on sugar, but sometimes they eat way too much. You know, it's not a huge deal. I don't know what you feel or how you perceive that kind of subjective experience of someone realizing that they are back in control of alcohol. Like, how do you work with people with that?
Yeah, I mean, I and just to throw another thing into the whole thing with the extinction side of it, I will sometimes break it down to different language, but into two other different areas as well. So where I when I started looking at it, I'm thinking pharmacological extinction. That's the extinction using pharmacology, which is the medication. And then I asked the question, what's being extinguished? And the first thing I thought about was that what's being extinguished is the craving. It's the neurological process. So when Dr. Sinclair was doing the research, he was specifically looking at things from a scientific point of view. In other words, the extinction of the addiction, or the craving, I believe, is the same as addiction. The craving is what creates the addiction. And so when I went back and I read The Cure for Alcoholism, people that know me well, on page 30 of The Cure for Alcoholism, Dr. Sinclair had done a lot of research on craving. Before you take naltrexone, if you don't have a drink, the craving's up here. After 90 to 100 days, take the pill, wait an hour, take the pill, wait an hour, take the pill. Sorry, take the pill, wait an hour, have a drink, take the, you know what I mean. Anyway, so so after 90 to 100 days, the craving is extinguished. So Dr. Sinclair did very clear scientific research on it. And so that a lot of the time when I'm working with people, if I'm speaking to someone who's been on the medication for 5, 6, 7 months, because of the science, I can now go back to them and say, okay, we know because of the science, your drinking is not being driven by craving and addiction, because that's extinguished. It's gone. It's not there anymore. And we've done it recently with a few people where we've said to them that have been on the program, I've got to be careful how I say this, please do not do this without seeking medical advice. But I've done it with one person, and I've said they were 12 months or so into the process. They were at a safe level where it was safe for them not to drink. And I said, just stop drinking. And only do it on medical advice, but stop drinking, because it's not craving that's driving it. They stopped drinking. There was no craving whatsoever, none whatsoever. And they went off and had weeks of complete abstinence. So there's that. I think the extinction for the craving from a neurological point of view is 3 months, 90 to 100 days. However, there's also the extinction for the habitual process of it. That's a completely different ballgame, because how do you measure extinction from habits? How do you measure extinction for emotional stuff? Like Katie's saying, if someone they've gone 3 months where everything's in control, then all of a sudden they lose a loved one, and then the drinking goes up a bit. Is that still extinction? In regards to the extinction for the craving and the addiction, yes. I've had a client recently that the drink went through the roof for about 6 weeks. The minute they got out of that situation, it dropped straight back down again. So the extinction was gone for the endorphin, the addiction for the endorphin. But that, like you said, Katie, it's how do you measure? You can measure the scientific point of view, You can do that in labs. You can test it and research it and everything else. You can't research emotions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Can you hear me, by the way? I was having some audio issues. Okay,
yeah.
good. Yeah, that's such an important point too, because I think there, for me at least, and I've seen this with people I work with, there's a definitely a phase on TSM where we don't really know the difference between a craving, a genuine craving, and just a thought about drinking. And for me, it took time kind of dissecting that. Like my brain would trigger, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I want to drink. And for a while, I was just taking naltrexone and drinking. But then I was like, is that a real craving? Or am I just like thinking about alcohol because it's 5 o'clock and my brain is habituated to that? So I think there's this process on TSM of people learning that there is a difference between a genuine craving versus just a thought, because I think we can stay stuck in habitual drinking just because we're habitually thinking about drinking at, the same time or in the same setting every day. So that's a challenge. And then to your point about how do we measure the extinction of the behaviors, like that is huge. And that was a really a big theme on our call last night inside Thrive, where people who'd been on the method for a few months up to a couple years, feeling frustrated that they felt like they were still leaning on alcohol in certain settings, but it wasn't like constantly. They were having alcohol-free days, they're having control a lot of the time, but they don't feel like they have this control 100% of the time in 100% of settings. And like, why is that happening? And I think it's different per individual, but as I think back on my journey, I think a lot of it has to do with the mindset and the belief of alcohol will make this better, or I deserve alcohol because I've been through this and alcohol's, going to make me feel better. And for me, I realized I had to have a real identity shift through this process. Like if I don't want to be somebody who turns to alcohol after a stressful day, then I've got to be somebody who doesn't turn to alcohol after a stressful day. Like that sounds, maybe that like that doesn't make sense, but I had to take on the identity of someone who was a normal drinker. And my husband was honestly a model for me because he drinks maybe once or twice a week, never seen him drunk, has a glass or two of wine, and he's done. So I would look at him and be like, okay, that's an example of what a normal drinker is. He never drinks when he's upset. He only drinks with meals. He never goes overboard. He takes his time with his beverages. And so I realized I had to become a person that did that behavior in order to reach like full extinction, where I felt like I was fully back in control of my drinking, regardless of the setting or circumstance or emotion or whatever I was going through. And in some ways, just like I learned to depend on alcohol when I was happy or sad or bored or at this place or whatever, I had to learn to depend on other things in those settings. And naltrexone helped with that tremendously because it got rid of that craving over time, which gave me that space to consider other things. But if I didn't consistently consider other things, consistently delay my drinking, consistently say, okay, I want to drink. Let me do this. Can you hear me okay?
It just cut off for 1 second,
Okay.
but it's back now.
I have like a heating pad and I think it's like short circuiting the audio or something. I'll have to fix that. But anyway, I was just saying that if I wasn't proactively, just like I was drinking on naltrexone and that was working on the neurological part, if I wasn't proactively doing other things to learn different coping skills or habits or responses, then I could see how I could definitely stay stuck in like, leaning on alcohol because I deserve it or because I'm bored or because I'm upset. One person in our call last night, they said something interesting, like something around the fact of like, I don't want to go take a bath. I don't want to go for a walk. I don't want to, do all these other list of coping skills that we talk about. I want to drink. And I'm curious, like, how do you respond to that type of situation where, someone's using naltrexone, following TSM, but they're struggling to like find that motivation or desire to even do other things to help them, get over this rut of habits linked to drinking?
Yeah, I think that a lot of that is caused by people trying to change too much too quickly. The biggest mistake, or not mistake, but the biggest thing that I see people doing in what I call stage 2, which is the change stage, is they try and make too big a change too quickly. And people want to go from from drinking 4 drinks in a night to drinking nothing in a night. And then the secret to that is go for a run, go out and do that. But people want to come home and relax. And you might have come home and had a drink and relaxed for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So it's going to take time to change it. It's going to take time to do that. So what I'll do, and then this is where Thrive comes into and support comes into it, because it's very important to then go into one of Katie's groups and sit there and just say, hey, listen, I'm struggling with this. How can I deal with it? You can speak to other people that have been through it, or Katie or whoever's running the group can say, listen, okay, this is, try looking at it this way. So if I'm working with someone in that scenario, I know the person, I know what's going on, I know what's happening in their life. I'll know what we've tried and has worked and what hasn't tried. If it's someone in the early days, I'll say to people, okay, if you're coming in through the door and from work and having a drink straight away, I don't want you not to have a drink that night and suddenly take at that stage. If you're getting through the door at 5 o'clock and you're having a drink straight away when you come in, initially there's an alarm clock that goes off at 4 o'clock to say it's time for endorphin at 5 o'clock when I get home. So all I want people to do initially is just shift that by half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to go out and change your life and go to the gym every night and start running a marathon and doing this and another. All I want you to do is to come in, grab the dog, walk out the door for 20 minutes and come back again, or come through the door and jump in a shower. Everyone's going to have a shower every day. Jump in and have a shower. A shower is going to take you 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it will take. Do something other than doing that. And a lot of it is just a mindset. And there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of worry in change. One of the best, where's it gone? The best book to do with change is that one.
That's a great companion to TSM.
Yeah, because that talks about if you make a 1% change every day, in 100 days' time, you've changed 100%. I spoke to a lady today that I'm working with that hadn't seen a lot of success up until now, and she's drinking about 50 units in the UK, which is about 5 bottles of wine a week. And she's been dropping recently at about 3 units a week, which is 1 glass of wine a week. And she's doing it consistently. And she said, oh, it's not happening and I really need to be going. And she wants to get down to about 25 units. Now she's at 50 and she wants to get it down to 25. So she's got another 25 units. And I said, if you do 1 glass of wine every single week for the next 8 weeks, that's 25 units. You'll have reached your goal in 8 weeks. And all you're doing is pulling out 1 glass of wine every single week. So again, it's just little by little, but in 8 weeks' time, then she'll be in a position where she's gaining a little bit more control every single week. And it's at the end of the 8 weeks, she's back in control again. So I think that people are just biting off too much too quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember reading a book, Atomic Habits was great for me. I read one called The Slight Edge. It's an older book, but it kind of delivered similar information, but in a way that made me really place a high value on those tiny things that we do every day, the tiny one thing that we're doing to change whatever habit we want to change. Because it's with those tiny things, what this book taught is they're very easy to do. So if you're going to delay your drinking by 20 minutes and take a shower, that's not that difficult. Like most people can do that. So it's very easy to do, but it's also very easy not to do. And so that's where the challenge comes in, where what's it going to make a difference if I delay my drinking 20 minutes today or not? I'll just start drinking. And that's where people can get stuck. They keep putting off that tiny change that would really make all of the difference if they're able to do it consistently. And this book kind of convicted me on like my exercise routine. Like I would want to go out and walk more often or exercise. And I just kept putting it off, thinking, I'll do it later, But instead of putting it off, I was saying, okay, I'll go out for a 10-minute walk and see what that does. But just valuing taking action, even if it's small action, and having that mindset that this is extremely important. It's honestly the thing that's going to make or break my success. Having that mindset shift has changed so many things in my life and made me place a high value on those tiny things that that we need to do with consistency over time to change any type of habit. So I appreciate you speaking to that.
There was something else. Sorry, there was something else that I learned the other day as well, just when I was speaking to someone. The brain will produce 95 nanograms of natural endorphin as a high. When you drink alcohol, it goes tenfold. It goes huge. So if someone has been drinking for 5, 10, 15 years, and the brain is getting a tenfold reward to the highest point that the brain will get as an endorphin reward naturally, then of course, the last 5, 10, 15 years, if the brain or you have got the choice of, okay, I can either sit in my armchair and have a drink, or I can go for a 2-mile run, after a while, the brain becomes dependent on the tenfold endorphin reward. It's going to pick that every time.
Right.
So it's a habitual psychological habit. So again, it's a case of, okay, now you've regulated and controlled the endorphin with naltrexone, you're not getting the huge reward. So it's just a case of getting those practices back again. And the more that you practice the natural endorphin, the more that it starts to come to life again. So that you'll actually enjoy it a lot more. But if you've got a choice of alcohol at the high reward to less reward, you're going to go and do the less reward.
Yeah.
Sorry, the higher reward.
Yeah. No, and it's true, and that's the beauty of TSM, because you drink on naltrexone, that you do the behavior that's been giving you tons of reward, but your brain isn't getting that same amount of reward. It's just not the same. So when you repeatedly drink on naltrexone and you couple it with alcohol-free days or alcohol-free chunks of time where you're going out and getting endorphin reward from anything else, and I just make it simple. Like, what makes you feel really good? What makes you feel relaxed? What's a good stress coping tool? What nourishes your soul and feels good? If you're consistently doing things like that, your brain is going to start to gravitate toward the thing that is actually giving you the reward, because you're not getting it from alcohol like you used to. But hey, if you're going for that bike ride or eating that delicious treat or something, your brain is going to actually start to prefer those things. And I've seen it over and over again with people on TSM where they'll tell me, yeah, I had the option to drink, but when I thought about it for a few minutes, reading that book or taking the bath or watching a movie or getting a massage, it just sounded better. So I chose that over the alcohol. But it requires that pause and that thought and that time to really think, do I want to drink or should I try something else? And not just that question, but do you have a list of 5 to 10 things that is the something else that you could do that might feel really good?
We had a group call once, and we were talking about the exact subject. And someone said, "What is it that you love to do as a kid that you've never done since you were a kid?" And someone shouted out, "I used to love climbing trees." And so the next week we had, I think, about 8 or 9 people who were 40 plus, who literally went out during the week and started climbing trees. We just had this image of a bunch of 40 plus year olds they could only get to the first branch or get up to the thing, but they went out trying to climb trees like they did when they were kids, but had an absolute ball doing it.
Well, I love that question, because that was honestly something I did too, because I didn't have hobbies outside of drinking. I was a daily drinker for 10 years, and it was basically all of my 20s. So all that time, I just learned to love alcohol and not much else. So I love that question of what did you do as a kid? Because I feel like when we develop alcohol use disorder, we rely on alcohol for fun, for happiness, for pleasure, and we almost forget how to have fun outside of alcohol and how to enjoy life outside of alcohol. And if we don't have other things that we love to do that light us up and bring us pleasure and happiness, of course we're going to keep turning to alcohol. And so, yeah, I would be like, I'm going to go get an ice cream and go to a movie, or I'm going to ride my bike, or veg out and watch rom-coms all day, just really simple things. And I'm like, I remember I used to love to do that before my AUD brain. Climbing trees wasn't one of them, but starting really small and making it really indulgent and rewarding. I often joke the cheeseburger and a milkshake was a thing for me. Like, a really indulgent meal felt really good. But we have to give ourselves a chance to do those things. Otherwise, alcohol is going to be the default easy choice, because it's the habitual pattern. Even with naltrexone, it's still a habit. Naltrexone's not going to change the habit or give you a new coping skill like right on a platter. We've got to seek out those things and learn them ourselves.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll say, and by the way, if you guys have questions, those of you who are here, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We would love to answer them if you have them. One other thing I want to say with the extinction thing before I forget, because it really was true for me. I realized when I had AUD, I was really in this habit of impulsivity, where as soon as I had a frustrating experience, or as soon as I felt good, or as soon as it was, quit time and I was off of work, I needed that drink right away. And I was in this habit of just impulsively responding to that need that I had, very short-term thinking, rather than thinking about the long-term consequences or benefits of my actions today. And so feeling frustrated after a stressful day at work, I'd be like, I need a drink. I wasn't thinking about how is this going to serve me tomorrow or in a week from now or in a year from now. It was just this hamster wheel of impulsively responding to that urge to drink. And part of this process for me was breaking that habit of impulsivity over time by starting to think about the long-term rewards. Maybe just starting with, well, how will I feel tonight when I go to bed? Will I be proud of myself that I drank, or would I be happier if I didn't drink? How will I feel tomorrow morning? Does this align with the goals I really have for myself in 6 months or a year from now? I found that my brain and mindset were not in the habit of thinking long term. I was just thinking about my next drink, thinking about the craving. And that's what AUD does for us. It just keeps us in this trap of short term thinking and short term reward. But as we value the long term rewards more, and a part of that is like really like, what do we want to do in life? Who do we want to be? What gives us meaning and purpose? How can we serve others? How can we, do things that really make us feel good about ourselves? Like, we need that meaning and purpose and fulfillment in life to even value long-term rewards. If we're bored and we have nothing to live for, and alcohol's the only thing we enjoy in life, like, it's going to be really hard to get out of that. And so it's so important to seek out the things that make you feel really good and pursue them consistently to get out of this trap of just short-term thinking and short-term reward.
I love that name, LPS Glitter Pause. I'm guessing it's a dog walking service or something, or therapy or something. Anyway, it took 18 months for me to reach extinction. Excuse me. After 20 years of daily drinking, it was the habit that was fighting me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's the habit is. I always say, like it is, AUD, alcohol dependency, is two things. One side is the dependency to the endorphin. The other side is the habit, the behavior, the situations, the circumstances, the emotional, psychological side. So the easy side, swallow a pill, it deals with the neurological side. All you have to do is swallow a pill. However, like Katie's saying, it's not going to deal with the other side. So even though we say it's just habit, so many times people say, oh, it's just habit. But that just habit is probably just as hard, if not harder, than the addiction. Because on the Sinclair method, the hard part is not the addiction. There is no issue with addiction. Swallow a pill. But so many people think if I just swallow a pill, that's it. If it deals with the addiction, I just need to swallow a pill.
Right.
Never underestimate the habits. You've got 5, 10, 15, 20. If you're in your late midlife crisis like me, then you could have been doing it for years and years and years. So to undo that habit, and to be honest with you, what you'll find on the habitual side is it's not the standard habitual things that, like, it's not a case of you come home, you have a drink at 6 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock, or you have wine instead of hard liquor or spirits. That's a very practical thing that you'll change. What will sideswipe you, and what is the hardest part of the whole process, are the emotional habits, because you are so used to responding to an emotional situation by having a drink. Now, depending on how much you're drinking and how often, my wife's a counselor, and she always used to say if she was counseling someone who's been through addiction at the age of 30 and they've been using something, alcohol or drugs, since 20, when they stop using or drinking at 30, they still have the emotional intelligence of a 20-year-old. So because every time, so that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with anyone, but it just means that you're going to have to learn to deal with the emotional responses to life without the volume of alcohol. But the nice thing with the Sinclair method that Katie and I always say is it's such a kind and graceful way of dealing with it, because as you're coming down, you can make, it's not even a mistake, you can have a stressful day, your drinking can go up for that day, but it will come straight back down again when you don't drink. So you can then notice the pattern that's happening and say, okay, right, how do I deal with that better next time? So, and if you're an abstinent-based program and you did that, you would relapse, and then everything goes back to square one again. So the Sinclair method allows the space to do it. But glitter pores, that's fantastic. 18 months after 20 years of daily drinking, that's about a month per year. So if someone had said to you, for every month of a year, you'll be extinction, you would have taken it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And they say I might have reached extinction earlier if I had joined a support group, but I was too scared of being found out, so I did it on my own. Yeah. I will say for those of you listening, like at Thrive and with Rethink Drink, like at least with us, you can speak to Rethink, but we like you can totally change your name. You don't have to use your real name. You don't have to go to the meetings. You can keep your camera off. You can use a pseudonym. We do our best to keep it as discreet as possible for that very reason. But I hear you. It's unfortunately this problem can create a lot of shame, and then it breeds isolation, and but I'm happy that you got there on your own, and that's amazing to hear that.
Yeah.
Andrea asks, can it also be working to return to creativity? I'm an artist who hasn't arted for months. Yeah, I mean, back to like rediscovering things that light you up and give you purpose and joy. Absolutely. Really anything that you enjoy to do, especially art. I read a quote somewhere. I can't remember exactly what it is, but the idea was basically that, if you have repressed creativity, it can come out in addictions. And I'm butchering it. I don't remember exactly what it said, but that really resonated with me because I feel on different levels, I'm a very creative person and I had no way to express that. And so I learned to lean on alcohol, or I don't know which came first. I started AUD and that suppressed my creative side, but I would definitely encourage creativity. When I was on TSM, I'm a horrible artist, but I went to the art store and I got paints and canvases and I just started painting. And that's how I started spending some of my alcohol-free evenings. And it was so fun just to have the colors in front of me. I'm a terrible artist, but like just to be able to freely paint and have lots of colors and be expressive and creative, that was so fun. I started sewing again and I started cooking more. Like I enjoy cooking a lot more. So pursuing creative activities, I think, is one of the greatest things in my experience that someone can do if you're drawn to that.
And Andrea, I've got we had some fantastic news at the weekend. I started working with a couple, must have been 3 years ago, and they were on and off and on and off, and they were both drinking, and it was causing absolute mayhem and chaos, and they were on and off and on and off, and everything was just going downward very quickly. They got on TSM. One went to abstinence and one is still drinking today. I got a text about 2 weeks ago to say that they were getting married on Saturday. So it's our first TSM marriage. But the reason that I'm saying that was they sent me a photograph on Saturday of the wedding and everything else, and they're away abroad on the honeymoon, so I can say it because they're not here. But unless they're listening in from Barbados, I don't know about that. But what I was going to say, Andrea, was that the gentleman that I was working with, he had never picked up a paintbrush or a drawing or anything. When he started going through with naltrexone, he started picking up, I don't know what they call them, the pencils, the very, very fine drawing of animals. And he started doing pets, people's dogs. And honestly, they are he's learned himself. He went onto YouTube, just learned how to do them. And honestly, these drawings, what do you call them, drawings, are absolutely incredible. And I've got another client that does exactly the same thing. And they say it just brings so much relaxation. Yeah. And relaxation is coming from endorphin. So absolutely, go and do as much art as you can do.
Yeah. Even if you're not an artist, like Andrea, you said, like to see your art. I'm not an artist. My husband is a sculptor though. So he has the artistic. I'm more, I would say, artsy with like cooking or sewing or making videos or things like that. Fashion is something I'm interested in, but I'm not good at art. But with that said, it was still really fun for me to make paintings and like freeform paint or do things like that. Like there was something to having all these colors in front of me, having the paintbrush, the canvas, just like chilling at home. I was really bad at it, but it was really fun. So even if you're bad at something, I think when we have AUD too, we get afraid of being bad at things because it requires vulnerability to suck at something and still pursue it. So the more you do that, the more you're just, strengthening yourself, building resilience, confidence in yourself. So even if you think you're bad at something, do it anyway.
So, okay, someone as well was asking. They used LDN for inflammation, and it gave me extreme panic attacks, so I discontinued. Does full dose naltrexone also have side effects like panic attacks? So if anyone doesn't know, LDN is what we call low dose naltrexone. Low dose naltrexone is very good for about 800 different conditions. If you're in the UK, there's an organization called ldnresearchtrust.org. Absolutely incredible organization. So you're getting panic attacks from it. To be honest with you, it's a doctor's question. It's something that would really need to be taken up with the doctor. There could be additional medical issues that cause the panic attacks. LDN is normally taken at 2 to 5 milligrams of naltrexone. So the naltrexone that's taken for the Sinclair method is taken at 50, 25 first, and then up to 50. But again, I don't know if you're in the UK or if you're in the States, but wherever you are, if it is an option for you to have a look at, definitely speak to a doctor, explain what had happened with LDN. There may be additional things that were causing it at the time. There can be other conditions that cause it. But if it's an option for drinking, absolutely speak to a doctor. Don't let it go by without speaking to a doctor first. If you're in the States, get in touch with Katie. If you're in the UK, get in touch with us, and we'll get a doctor's advice on it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, that's interesting. I took LDN for a while myself. I don't take it anymore, but I've never heard of someone having panic attacks from it. But of course, like I haven't looked at the full list. So I would be curious what your doctor has to say about that.
So sometimes as well, and you'll get it with naltrexone, and this is where the medical support is so important, is quite often there are other things that are underlying conditions and things. So things like when you use it for alcohol, let me just give you an example. Sometimes people will say to us, "Oh, I'm starting to feel really tired in the afternoon, Bruce. I'm starting to get, is naltrexone, it's making me really tired all of a sudden." Now, when we go back to their drink diaries and we notice they've dropped 50% of wine in the last 2 weeks, the chances are that tiredness in the afternoon has nothing to do with the medication. If they've been on the meds for 3 or 4 weeks and then all of a sudden they're starting to feel tired, then it's a drop in sugar. So that's possibly not your case, but what I'm trying to say is there's quite often an underlying issue that once you take naltrexone, whether it's LDN or 50 milligrams, it will reveal other things, which is why it's important to speak to a doctor with your medical history and your medical background.
Yeah, and on to kind of speak to my experience with being tired. I just found I was tired even maybe 6 months into my journey. I was drinking so much less. I was feeling so much better, just not consuming as much alcohol, but I didn't feel as energized and as just like healthy as I thought I would. I found that I had to sleep a lot, that I just didn't have the energy that I thought I should. Looking back on that, I think what was happening is my body was like catching up on years of horrible sleep that I would get from drinking too much and staying up late and not sleeping well. Nowadays, if I stay up too late and I don't sleep enough, I feel hungover the next day, even though I don't drink. And so I'm like, it's crazy how much sleep deprivation contributes to a hangover. So part of my healing with TSM really was like just extreme self-care, taking really good care of myself, getting a lot of sleep. My body was needing it. And I also think I was deficient in nutrients because when we drink a lot, it just sucks our nutrients out of our body. We can become nutrient deficient of certain minerals and vitamins and things like that. So I started gradually eating healthier. I was eating kind of whatever I wanted because I felt like if I was going to have a bowl of ice cream instead of drinking that day, I would allow myself to do that. And I was totally fine with that. But I did start, wanting to eat better and started supplementing. And I've done a lot of other things the last 6 or 7 years as well, just to improve my health. But like Bruce is saying, it might not all be linked to the naltrexone. It could be other things as well. And also, I hear people say a lot, like our tolerance to alcohol decreases. So we may become more sensitive to the effects of alcohol, which can make you sleepy. And among other things.
It's like the taste as well, isn't it? A lot of people say, I don't know what it is with this naltrexone, but it's really affecting the flavor of my drink, and it's horrible now. And it's yes, the naltrexone is lowering the endorphin reward, but it's the lack of endorphin reward that you're now tasting the flavor of the drink. So there's a lot of underlying things that could be causing it. So
yeah.
So the person that asked that question's in Europe. So yeah, wherever you are in Europe, speak to your doctor. And if alcohol is an issue and naltrexone is an option, then there's no harm in trying it. Absolutely no harm in trying it. I mean, it's the 25 milligrams would be the first day anyway. If it's going to solve the alcohol solution, then give it a try, or speak to the doctor and then give it a try.
Yeah. And it looks like we have a question here from Jay. I'd prefer to take it daily at night or morning being I don't trust myself to take it and wait an hour. Have people had success taking the medication like that? So we're not doctors, so we can't give medical advice or tell you when to take it, but I'll just tell you anecdotally what I've seen with people. So if someone doesn't trust themselves to be compliant, what I've seen their doctors do is maybe they'll have them take it at the same time every day. Let's say you start drinking at 5 every day. So their doctor might say, okay, take it at 3 o'clock or at a time where you can trust yourself to take it. Because if you're following the Sinclair method and you look into the research, it really is important that you have the naltrexone dose close enough to your drinking window. You don't want to take it, at 6 in the morning and then drink at 6 at night, because 12 hours later, you've washed a lot of the medicine out of your system. Again, this isn't medical advice, but just speaking pharmacologically of the body metabolizing the medication. So people do that. And I think one of our viewers here commented that they were taking it daily, sometimes twice a day. So talk to your doctor about setting yourself up for success so that you are taking it in a way that you will be able to be compliant, and so that you are taking it, if you want to do TSM, talk to your doctor about taking it in that targeted way so that you have adequate medication in your system to get the effects. Because I've talked to so many people over the years who their doctor told them to take it every day in the morning or before bed. And they're like, oh, this doesn't work because I'm drinking at 5 o'clock, and they just don't have enough medicine in their system to get the effects of it. Anything you want to add to that, Bruce?
No, that's absolutely bang on. And it's what we want to be doing is lots of people talk to me about I do a lot of live TikToks, and I'm getting a whole bunch of guys from the States coming in at the moment, and they're all talking about Vivitrol, and Vivitrol is an injection version. And they sort of say, well, should we take Vivitrol? And I keep saying to them, what we're trying to do with naltrexone is target the alcohol. Because if you've got it in your system 24, or if you're taking it at 6 in the morning and then 6 at night, but you're not drinking until 7 o'clock at night, then the medication that you're taking in the morning, it's not going to do any harm, but you're not targeting the endorphin. So what you want to be doing is taking the medication, waiting an hour. When you drink alcohol, it produces the huge amount of endorphin, and the naltrexone is blocking that endorphin. As a result of that, it's rewiring the pathway, which is how you de-addict the addicted brain by rewiring the pathway. And that's what gives you the long-term success. So if you're taking the medication and not drinking, the brain's not learning anything. So therefore, the process is going to take a lot longer. So that's why we need to be taking it an hour and a half before you drink. But again, there might be medical reasons why the doctor's advising that. Check with the doctor. But that was Dr. Sinclair's findings, was that take it 1 hour so you specifically target the endorphins that are produced from alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's another comment here where they say, I was told to take it daily for 3 months in the morning. So that's the thing with naltrexone. I'm actually working, we're working to try to get the label changed here in the US. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but it's like a project we're chipping away at, because if you go to your general doctor and they're willing to prescribe it, typically the on-label way to prescribe it is take it daily. And a lot of doctors prescribe it either first thing in the morning or at night. And if they don't know about TSM or pharmacological extinction or targeted dosing of naltrexone, they'll prescribe it that way. And just because they don't know any different. If you go to a TSM doctor who specializes in this treatment, typically they'll prescribe it what's called off-label. So the label will still say, take it daily, probably. That's what mine always said. But then your doctor is telling you, take it following this specific protocol. So that's where it's helpful to see a practitioner who understands this treatment and can work with you on how to take it following TSM. I've gotten so many messages from people who, I think I just said, like, they get prescribed it from their doctor. They try taking it in the morning, but they're drinking at night. And a month or two later, they're like, oh, this doesn't work. And they stop taking it. And then years later, they learn about TSM and they're like, oh, that's why it didn't work. So understanding that, David Sinclair's research really showed that naltrexone works best when it's taken paired with alcohol drinking.
So, okay. And then someone's saying, I was told to take it daily for 3 months in the morning. Yep, that one's. And I've noticed that I'm still drinking the same on the weekends, but it doesn't taste the same. Taste is normal, very, very normal. Remember, everything, I'm going to go on to my endorphin route. Everything to do with AUD or alcohol addiction is endorphin related. Everything. The reason we drink is endorphin, the addiction is endorphin, and the relapse is endorphin. So, and it's a very, very, very high amount of endorphin, and that's a chemical that makes you feel good and makes you feel happy. When you're drinking on a regular basis, you will be blown away once you get onto the Sinclair method how much of your drinking is driven, however much you're drinking and when you drink, is driven by the endorphin. So when you take, including taste, so when you reduce the amount of alcohol that when you reduce the amount of endorphins from naltrexone, the brain is not getting that huge rush of endorphin. So therefore, it's going to start tasting the flavor. If you give a gin and tonic or a whiskey or a wine or a scotch, you'd call it, I was going to say something there, but it's too late for just now. Is why do they call it scotch in America? I don't know that. Anyway,
why don't they call it scotch in the UK? We call it whiskey too.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Completely lost the track now. The taste. The taste. So the actual flavor of it, when you reduce the endorphin that you're getting from the alcohol, all of a sudden, if you give alcohol to a kid, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, they'll spit it out straight away because the brain hasn't got used to having the endorphin. The flavor is horrible. And so that's why the flavor, it's not the flavor has changed or your taste has changed, the reward has changed. And that's why you get what it is. And that's a very good sign on the Sinclair method. It shows that the medication is working.
I love the way you describe that, Bruce. Like you said it so perfectly. It's as to why the taste changed, because it's an acquired taste for most of us. The first time we sip a glass of red wine, it's like, ugh, why would you keep drinking this? But when you get that reward, you learn to like the taste because it's associated with the reward. So
it's like nicotine. When you first have your first cigarette, it's horrible, but then you get the reward from the nicotine, and then after a while, oh, this is nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I lost the taste for red wine on this treatment. I used to love red wine, though I hated it when I first started drinking it, but learned to like it. But TSM, ugh, I don't like it. But I still liked beer, cocktails, champagne, white wine. Red wine was the only thing that I couldn't really like
I
enjoy
still
anymore.
panic on your social media when I see you pouring that red wine. I keep thinking, no, don't do it, Katie. And then it always goes up to your mouth and then you cut.
Yeah.
And it always in the back of my head is, did she drink it or didn't she?
People are like, why don't you use grape juice? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm lazy and my husband leaves all these unfinished bottles of wine because he doesn't drink very much. So yeah, I make videos with like wine as props sometimes. So
If
yeah.
anyone's in the States, I'm going to give a quick plug for Katie. If anyone's in the States or anywhere in the world, go into YouTube, type in Katie Lane. Katie has got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos on the Sinclair method. So,
Yeah.
and social medias and TikTok and everything else. And go through all the videos until you find the one with the wine, and you'll know what I mean.
Yeah, there's a few out there. Yeah. Yeah, lots of success stories there as well. I documented my journey from month 1. So thanks, Bruce. All right. Well, we actually have to wrap up a couple minutes early because I have a meeting in a few minutes here that I have to hop to. So thank you so much to everyone who joined wherever you were joining from. It was awesome to have you all here. Thank you for the questions and conversation. I hope this was helpful for you. As always, if you're looking for Sinclair Method support and you're in the UK, I spelled Rethink Drink wrong in the banner, but go to rethinkdrink.co.uk. That's Bruce's organization. He's partnered with Matt. They do amazing things to help people through with TSM over there. And then, of course, thrivealcoholrecovery.com here in the US. Any final words from you, Bruce, before we hop off?
It's not your fault. If anyone is struggling with alcohol, it's not your fault. And alcohol dependency, AUD, today is completely treatable.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a lifelong disease. You're not stuck that way. Yeah, beautiful.